Hello, fellow Supermom. I'm glad you're here. This is the Special Needs Supermom podcast, the glass of wine for your mind. Your tribe where you can relax, unwind, and get stronger and more confident about your superpowers. I'm Nadine, your host, supermom of an autistic wonder boy and a supergirl battling juvenile arthritis, all while being a military spouse and international entrepreneur. Enjoy your glass of wine. Well, hello, listeners. Today I have Sharoya Ham from Embrace Behavior Change with me. Welcome to the show, Sharoya. Can you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Nadine. What a pleasure it is to be here with you today to talk to parents. My name is Sharoya Ham, as Nadine has already said. I am a behavior change specialist and parent coach and the founder of Embrace Behavior Change.
Can you tell a little bit about yourself and your family, where you live? Well, that's a bit of an adventure, of course.
But, sure.
Yeah.
Yes. My family, I have three wonderful boys who doesn't brag on their kids, but they're awesome. And for the last 14 years, my family and I have lived in Africa in 6 different countries. Given my husband, it works for the U.S. government. So that has been our lifestyle, and it makes a unusual dynamic when parenting kids. But it has been an awesome experience. During that time, prior to leaving the U.S., I was a teacher and working with at-risk students for several years. And then I became a stay-at-home mom, which I never dreamt of being, but it turned out to be my most exciting career. I became so fascinated with trying to learn these 3 individuals that were given to me, who they are, what they're good at, what are their likes, their dislikes. And I have to say my background, undergraduate, is in mathematics. And my graduate is in applied behavior analysis.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of time trying to figure out solutions to problems. And so that's really, my kids became like this wonderful puzzle to me. And I think because of that, I learned the value of observation and that serendipitously came to this career as a parent coach.
Okay. Yeah, because how did you start with your business? Were you just inspired, or did you thought, when your kids get older, or did you find that perhaps moms came to you because you seemed so calm and, in control of things and wanted to learn from you?
I always say when I grow up, I wanted to be a public speaker, motivational speaker. And so this wasn't even on my radar. Who knows about First of all, who thinks that they can be a parent coach? Nobody who's been a parent, I don't think you feel like you're an expert at it.
No.
But my journey began with my son. He had ADHD. I realized overseas that we didn't have the resources that I would naturally have in the U.S. And so when it came down to it, I saw the school wasn't able to give him the support he needed. Me having a background in education, I said, okay, I'm going to homeschool him. It worked out wonderfully. I only homeschooled him for 6 months. He turned his whole academic mindset around. During that 6 months, he identified himself as a learner. And the reason why is because we were able to identify together how he learned best. Oh, so once amazing. He had that confidence, I let him go. He went to boarding school in the U.S. and he did exceedingly well. After that, a family within the expat community saw or heard of my teaching my son and asked me would I teach their son. And their son was on the autism spectrum. And so I never taught a kid with that background. And so I said, well, I'll give it a try. Again, my background is in problem solving. So that's what I did. And it was a wonderful experience. And what I would do is I would make games with him in school. And then I would tell his parents that he could actually do this. But I saw that they didn't quite implement it at home.
Yeah.
And I was getting frustrated. I had a arrogance, like if they would just do it, he would even improve farther. And I kept talking to them, and it basically was judgment. I was judging them, like, why aren't they doing it? They should spend more time. They should. Then I pulled back for a minute, and I realized they were overwhelmed.
Oh, yes.
While he was getting support in his therapies and he was progressing in school, they were still trying to deal with the everyday, responsibilities of having a child with special needs, right?
Yes.
So it's, how do I care for my other child who needs so much attention? I'm quite tired of, trying to manage just behavior and all those sorts of things. And when I was able to see that, I just said, okay, I started talking to the mom and just taking her concerns about mothering and even being a spouse and listening. And then I realized if I could just reach parents and help them take that load off, I could actually be more effective, because I'm sending a kid into an environment that the parent has the capacity to really focus and help the child.
I recognize so much, with I've got a daughter who's really dyslexic, so she loves to read and learn, not, and a son who's on the autistic spectrum as well. And they would get all these therapies, but at home I still had my struggles of, just like you said, day-to-day life. And if I found now a good 10 years in the special needs journey myself, that, if a mom or if the parent understands and is balanced and doesn't feel they need to meet all the boxes or have to be perfect in everything, you can see the result of that in the kid, really.
For sure. Definitely. And that became my job then, to tell parents, to validate them. First of all, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And you are the best parent for your child. It may not feel like it sometimes, but you are.
Yeah.
So just take a deep breath and let's talk about your life, and let's see what you can remove. What's really not necessary? What are you doing because you think it's expected of you? Or let's even ask your child, what do they enjoy most? What do they want you never to stop doing? And then what would they appreciate if you did a little less?
Oh, totally.
And, I've had kids who say to me that they want their mom to stop faddling around the house, doing chores. And I'm like, your child is giving you permission to sit with them. Or how about permission to enjoy? I've had teenagers just say, I just want mom to enjoy her life.
Yeah.
And what I really want parents to understand is that our kids want the best for us. As much as we want the best for them, they look at us. They want the best for us. They want us to achieve in our careers. They want us to achieve in whatever social ventures we have going on. And they want us to be happy.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a very important dynamic that many parents don't quite understand.
No.
Our kids are rooting for us.
Yeah. Oh, I almost teared up when you spoke about, parents, not feeling good enough, trying to meet all those outer expectations, and you feel like a failure constantly. And because of all the pressure and all the stress, the relationship with your kids gets more stressed as well. And for us, it was such a huge shift when, I let go of the, especially the outer pressure of people thinking my kids should behave such and such way. And at home, we had no problems because we had our rules and it was clear and there was a schedule. But the moment we went outside, I thought, he has to try to fit in better and more, and I don't want to upset family. And when I changed it around, going to family, saying, okay, we're coming over. You can expect this. He needs that. The change was, yeah.
I am so happy you brought that point up, because I find with our wonderful families, with children with special needs, they want to protect.
Yeah.
And so the natural thing is to keep them close by, monitor where they go to make sure they don't have bad interactions. But imagine that on the kid, that you're always quenching them, always trying to keep them around you. And I try to tell parents, imagine if you would just go, as you just said, to the family that you're going over, the house you're going, you give them a call and you say, listen, here's my child's situation. Here's how he generally responds. And here's how you can respond to him in a way that he would know you value him. And so instead of asking your child to adjust to thousands of people, you ask one person to adjust to your one child.
Yes.
It's just a simple thing, but sometimes it doesn't come across a busy parent's mind.
No.
To do. Just stop. Call the people up before in advance, because guess what? They will feel comfortable.
Yes.
Because people, when they don't know how to respond, they feel uncomfortable. And if it worked for all the kids who've come in their door, surely it's not their fault. It's your child's fault.
Yes.
And then you feel that, the child feels it, but it all can be prevented.
Yeah. This is so important. So you coach parents. But do you only coach, special needs parents, or just also, I would say almost general parents in general that are just overwhelmed with, especially now, maybe even with the pandemic and the mandatory homeschooling, because it's one thing that you choose to homeschool your kids. It's another thing if you have to suddenly homeschool your kids because the school's closed.
My catchphrase is, I help overwhelmed parents find relief. Who those overwhelmed parents and why they are overwhelmed, I don't get into that. Just, I'm here to help you calm down, because ultimately, I understand the importance of your relationship with your child and how that affects our society.
Yes.
So as I dare to change one family at a time, I dare that family change our society one family at a time. Yes. So I see a broader picture. What I noticed, how I started out was helping families with special needs. But sometimes when they come to me, I feel like my biggest job for them is help them through acceptance. Yes. And to realize the value of getting a diagnosis. Yes. So many families come to me without a diagnosis. So I feel like my journey with those families are to get them to understand how valuable assessment is. And so usually after those assessments, and I get them understanding that it's a great thing to know exactly how we should classify this, because science will then tell you how to respond. Yeah. And your child will be so happy that you're responding to them a way that that is effective and that shows works, Yeah. Usually those parents will then move on to someone who specializes in those areas. So I just love to be that usher, to usher them from that place of being overwhelmed, being disappointed.
Yes. Being scared, really.
Being sad.
Yeah.
All the emotions, being scared. And so calming that down so they can just go, wow, all is not lost.
No. I remember, especially with Wonder Boy, that when we got the diagnosis, I think the hard thing I had was you're suddenly scared for the future because you're You don't know what to expect. And when it comes to autism, the only reference in movies we have is Rayman. And that's, of course, that's a part of autism as well. But a lot of kids are, the Wonder Boys.
Spectrum.
Yeah, it's a huge spectrum. And not all are brilliant scientists like in the Big Bang Theory, but, and not all are like Rayman. But it took me some time. But we never had, like I said, problems with Pepin at home because we recognized ourselves in him. My military husband might be a little bit more strict in certain ways. I'm quite enthusiastic, or maybe ADHD, if you would say it like that. So we recognized our boy, because we recognized ourselves. But when we got suddenly that label, everybody had an opinion. And that was really hard. And especially that they said, oh, you shouldn't say out loud that he has autism. Until we always joke about it in the family. We always make little jokes. We all have some kind of disability. I need meds for my lungs. My daughter needs meds for her rheumatoid arthritis. Pepper needs meds to clear his mind, really. So we don't make a heavy thing of it. And one morning, about a year ago, we were at my parents' house, and he made a joke saying, oh, that's not autistic. I can't deal with that. And my mother was like, oh, you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't say that you're autistic. And he said, Grandma, I'm autistic. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I was so proud. And then, he had to go to special needs high school. And I found it a bit hard myself because I was afraid of the stigma and everything. But he just needed those 4 years of extra security, extra growth. And now he's in college and he has to write an application letter. And he was writing it yesterday. And he said, I want to implement something about the fact that because I'm autistic, I'm really, I can really understand people well. And I have more patience because I understand the struggles. And I was like,
yeah.
And he says, awesome. I want that in. I was like, shouldn't you maybe not say that in your application? He said, no, because that's a really great quality and I can really help people. I help people because of the way I am. And I was like,
awesome.
And
that was the piece that I was saying to you in terms of my son identifying himself as a learner.
Yeah.
He had been sitting in school year after year, identifying himself as less than.
Yes.
And so recently I did a interview with him on my Facebook live streaming. And I was so amazed by how confident he is in expressing that he has ADHD, and how he doesn't see it as a weakness. So I think it's so important for us to be straightforward with our kids about this is what you have and these are the benefits of having it.
Yes, totally. And do you then also see with parents, but maybe also with kids when they get older, because they are maybe not that great in certain things like math or spelling. My son would probably be great in Shakespearean English spelling, but modern spelling, he doesn't get the rules. And I remember at KU, Kansas University, where he was diagnosed, they said, it will never stick. You can better teach him this and that. But at the primary school we were at, it was a huge deal. You had to be great in spelling, because if you weren't great in spelling, so he became smaller and smaller and smaller because he tried so hard and he never did well until he found a teacher who said she found a different way of helping him.
And this is so important. I talked about that, paying attention to your child to know what they are good at, what they like, is so important. Because if you're going to keep your child in a traditional school, because we always told our kids, there are some things you're going to have to adjust to if you're going to go to a traditional school. When we gave them other options, they didn't want them.
No.
So we said, okay, be very clear. This is how you're going to behave in school. But now on the outside of school, we're going to submerge you in those things that you enjoy, that you're good at, and to counteract what they're hearing, what they're feeling in school. So I think it's very important for parents. Sometimes they don't have an option. There's only one school.
Yes.
Be very aware how much time you're spending outside of school trying to help them do those things that they have to do in school, instead of giving them opportunities to succeed in areas that they do well, and see how you can blend the two. So if they don't like writing, but they like art, then there are kits for art and journaling. You can blend the two.
Yes.
And so that takes some time and some observation, which I keep going back to this understanding that parents, if you want to solve some problems, you have got to slow down, take something off of your plate so you can observe your child. Once you begin to observe and say, wow, they're struggling here, but they're good here, you can connect dots. But as long as we're in that rush, it's very difficult.
Yeah, and the rush is there's always something you need to do, or there's always somebody outside that needs your attention. And then when you're finally sitting on the couch, totally tired, but with your phone in your hand, for instance, before you know it, there's another day gone by. And even my kids one day said, Mom, I thought we were watching a movie, but you're on your phone. I'm like, oh, yes. And we tell them to place down their phone when they go to bed. And the other day, my daughter came into the bedroom and she was like, but you're on your iPad. So what's the
difference? Yeah.
So they act like we do. So it's also leading by example, really.
And also, just as you say, one of the quotes is the hardest part of parenting is parenting yourself out of your child.
Oh, yes.
And I think parenting is a two-way gift. When we see our flaws in our children, it's just an invitation to say, let me work on me.
Yeah.
So then I can model what I want to model for them.
Yeah.
I mean, and basically your kid is saying, Mom, you said you were tired, but you're not resting. What a gift that is. Your child is observing you and giving you the opportunity to grow.
Yeah. Often our kids, also our special needs kids, can really, they already give you clues on what they need. Like my son from early age on would say, you're giving me too many things. Mom, you just said this, and now you also mentioned that. And oh, by the way, there's a third thing. So because he said it's too overwhelming, can you start with one, Mom? And if I finish that, can you give me the second option? And,
Awesome. And then, for smaller kids, that's extremely hard for them to articulate. And that's why, again, it's so critical to look. When is your child not following directions?
Yes.
It's when you gave them a whole list. Or how about, did you try a list? Did that work for them?
Yeah.
So going in there and really doing some experiments with your kids. And I think that's my job as a coach, to pull parents in. Let's talk about it. What happened this morning? What happened yesterday? Oh, I'm beginning to see a pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you do it one-on-one, face-to-face, or do you also do online coaching then, or in a group setting? How do you work with your company? How do you coach parents that way?
So I work with parents one-on-one. I usually I've worked with couples. That's how I really, because you set the environment together as a family. I don't do too much with the kids. When I bring in kids, I'm getting information. I'm asking them, what do you like? What don't you like? What do you want? What do you need? Those are the questions that I'm getting from them. So then I can go tell their parents, hey, they don't want this. They don't need this. Let's focus on these things. And parents feel relief that to know that they don't have to do all of these other things. So what I do, because I take families where they are, eventually I want to write a book that's a manual and you can go through it. But right now, I'm 2 years into the business of coaching. Before, it was more like I would just have people come over and do it kind of casually. So as I grow the business, I'm giving myself time to understand those main things that families are struggling with. And so what I like to do is pull families in, hear your story, and also the ethos of your family, because that will determine what I suggest to you. You know, what's your parenting style? I'm not going to ask you to talk to your kids the way I talk to mine. I'm going to use your words and ask you to consider changing the tone of your voice, changing this word or not ending with this word. So being very detailed. So I don't follow a program. What I do is I take your story and help you create the story you want for your family.
And do people have to be, do you do that only in the country where you're based at, or do you also do online coaching?
No, I have clients from around the world, generally expats. Some of them are separated from a spouse. And so that is a different dynamic. We're trying to support the parents together, because even though you're separated, you're still responsible for parenting those kids together.
Yes.
And generally, so the parent who has the children, it is the responsibility of the other parent to support that parent.
Yes.
And at many times that parent is so busy, they can't even articulate to the other parent how they can be helpful.
Yeah.
So again, that is what I do for the families who come to me. So, I'm also providing, just starting a support group. That's where my heart is, because I like to listen and give people not tips, but actually behavior change methods. And so that's why it's named Embrace Behavior Change.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And it's so helpful. But I do wonder, as an expat, you move around different countries, sometimes different continents. Do you also see an effect of, a culture on, challenges? I remember when I was in Tanzania, for instance, ADHD wasn't even a diagnosis because it wasn't considered a problem there. So what we saw as a huge problem, and we think it's a modern thing, but actually the first book written about boys being really busy and loud and abruptive in class is from 1835. Mm-hmm. So you do wonder, if they already said, kids were really busy and, restless, maybe we're doing something wrong. But anyway, do you see, the aspect of culture in how people respond, react, cope with things?
To parent.
Yeah.
I love this question because I've had focus groups in different countries. And what I know for sure is that we all have the same values. We want the best for our kids. We want them to have great futures. And so I sit parents down, and once you connect to those values, and I say, what part of your culture, the way you were brought up, the parenting style meets these values? And then which behaviors have you seen your parents use that don't quite support these values? How would you like to change them? So I tell people all the time that your culture influences your parenting, but it should not be the guide which you establish everything you do. Yeah. So I've had fathers who've come to me and say, My father was not actively involved, and I am more actively involved in my child's life, but I don't know to what degree. How much am I supposed to be doing this? How much is right? So that's the question. And so we talk about how much is comfortable, how much is practical with the job you have, and helping them to understand I'm not bringing my American values or my American way of thinking to influence your parenting. I want you to look at your culture, your experiences, and say, I like this, but I don't like this, and dare to be that family who's going to do it a little different.
Yes. I almost wanted to say hallelujah, but is there, a typical struggle you come across most as a parent coach? If you're...
What the biggest struggle I see is parents not really feeling or knowing for sure that they need help. And I can totally identify with that because I had boys and my friends had girls. And so I would go around them and they talk about all their academic success. And I'm thinking, why are my children not stellar students? They weren't bad at all, but they weren't stellar. And I began to judge my kids according to theirs.
Oh, yeah.
So finally, I got some sense and stopped using them as the measure. And just like, the kids are doing fine, let them be. But sometimes you don't know what quote unquote normal is.
Yes.
So I have some things that I try to tell parents, ask questions. One, is your child's behavior or whatever issue you're dealing with affecting your child's relationships? Do they have friends? And here's another question. Do your friends want to be around your child?
Oh, wow.
These are indicators. Okay. The next thing is, how's your relationship with your spouse or the co-parent? Is the issue at hand causing friction in that relationship? Another red flag.
Yeah.
How's it affecting the kid's identity? Are they feeling like they're just a failure at school? Do they leave school feeling, they come home with all of these marks and demerits? Are they feeling like they're a bad person? Another red flag.
Oh, yes.
And then the last one is, how about their mood, their personality, their mental health? What's going on there? Are they crying all the time? Are they lashing out? I want parents to understand sometimes it doesn't take multiple sessions of coaching.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just one for you to get an understanding of what's normal or not normal. So what I want to tell parents, even listening, if you're unsure, you think if you're overwhelmed, let's just start with that. It's time just to confide, whether it's a school counselor, a friend who has a child with special needs. Maybe they can share their story before they actually went to get help. Because for me, my son, every teacher from preschool to grade 7 always would say, well, he's such a great kid. He's always looking out the window. We try to keep him focused, but he doesn't focus. Even in my background as a teacher, I just didn't understand. I didn't think that was a problem. I just thought they should be more entertaining. He might pay attention. And so I didn't get him an assessment until the 7th grade. What if I understood that? My son would not have gone through all those years of thinking he was less than.
Yeah.
I don't carry guilt about that. I want parents to understand, listen, we're doing the best we can.
Yes.
And I changed when I knew better.
Yeah.
So
I think for us, the lucky break was when we got stationed in the US. And we knew there was something with Pepin, just not quite sure what. Like I said, at home, no problem. He would focus for hours on his Legos. We had in the Netherlands, we say we have no kids to him. He would just be happy, totally playing by himself. No problems, no attention span problems. And then we moved to the States, and they learned English beforehand. But it's still different learning English one-on-one and suddenly be in a totally English environment. And my 5-year-old daughter would just copy the behavior of all the other kids. So everybody would get a yellow folder out of their desk. She would get the yellow folder out of the desk. And my son would think, well, not understanding it anyway. This is a perfect, great time to use my pencil as a wand like Harry Potter and walk around in class. And because he was not diagnosed yet, within 4 days, the counselor from the school came to us saying, we think there is something going on here. And the way kids are taught and, had to behave in school is different from the Netherlands and the States. It was a bit more strict in Kansas, at least. And Pepin just didn't follow the rules, was all over the place. And they asked me to come in and help, at least in the morning, until there would be a diagnosis and he would get his IP, what's the name? Individual IPA?
Yes, Individual Education Plan.
Oh yeah, IEP, that's it. IEP. So the first half year, I was there every morning. And that was the first time I saw he really couldn't pay attention. Even in the morning, they would start with 6 mathematical problems. So the teacher could start the day and everybody just had to figure out, it's a 5-minute assignment. And he couldn't stay focused for 6 thingies. So for us, that was, really a blessing in disguise. It was really hard. Mm-hmm. But I don't blame myself that I didn't see it beforehand.
That's right.
Because at home, he was a totally different boy. Mm-hmm. And like you said, we thought, he probably just needs to be more challenged. He probably, he's in a really crowded classroom. So, of course, he's going to act up. And it wasn't until I was actually there in the classroom, seeing his mind literally wander off within 30 seconds that we were like, oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, he really needs. And thankfully, we were in Kansas. There was a lot of help available. It's sometimes, like you said, can really depend on the school as well, even state-wise.
I like the point that you were making in terms of he was successful at home.
Yeah.
And couldn't quite meet the requirements of school. So which one should we make him be?
Yeah.
We have to be very careful to keep a balance in our kids' lives. Who says that he shouldn't behave the way he was behaving at home? But we understand he needs some structure. He needs to have some behaviors in place to succeed in school.
Yeah.
But do we have to make him have those same behaviors at home? And I think that's very important for families to understand that we must give our kids space to be their natural selves.
Yes. Yeah, and then you can really see also the difference between certain teachers. That some teachers just have this natural ability, even with 30 kids, to navigate each kid and then connect like, what a kid really needs. And I think that's, I have to say, amazing. And even, let the kids be in value if they don't, are not a stellar student. Because certain schools are really focused on, always getting A's. And he had a teacher that said, I said to my son, oh, you did a great job. You got a C+ for something he really struggled with. And the teacher in front of my son got angry with me saying, you shouldn't applaud him. I know he can do better. I know, he lives in America. He speaks English. So she corrected me in front of the son. And I was like, this is You're judging him on something he can't.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how that is with, we have state tests here in the Netherlands, but the state tests are really only about math, spelling, things like that. Mm-hmm. Doesn't say if you're really social, doesn't say if you really help kids. Mm-hmm. And we were at this high-end school, and it was a big thing, getting the right records, and not only your grades from school, but all those state records. And he came home saying, "Oh, I've got half of the questions correct." And we said, "That's amazing." Mm-hmm. And the next day, he was corrected at school saying, "Yeah, but I heard that a friend of mine, he only had one mistake out of the 500 questions or something." And I said, "So I think, yeah, Mom, I didn't do a great job." And we really had to tell him, what we think of this paper, and we threw it away saying, "This doesn't matter. This mm-hmm. doesn't say that you're a great boy, that you love to help your grandparents, or that you..." And he just needed that confidence. That it's okay.
Mm-hmm. As many people would be surprised that most teachers have not received training in their undergraduate or graduate program about children with special needs. So they're not very aware of how to identify or even respond to. Yeah. So I feel for teachers because they're making judgments and they really don't understand. I think schools, higher educations are getting better and teacher training is getting better, but definitely older teachers have been in the field for a while, have no clue. And so I think some of these up and coming teachers give me hope because many of them have grown up in schools where children with special needs have been in the classrooms with them, and they have learned that, they can achieve and they learn differently and appreciate them. So I believe they're going to approach and go into the classrooms much different than the teachers in the past. But my heart goes out because I know I graduated in the 90s and started my career as a teacher in the 90s. And I recognize I wasn't properly trained. And so there were two kids that I can distinctly remember that I wasn't able to reach. And they had memory issues. So no matter how much I tried to teach them in the classroom, the next day it was as if I said nothing to them. And then, I wouldn't get angry. I would just reteach it, but I was just exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had no idea that these learning challenges even existed.
I think that may be a good thing to remind parents as well that, especially older teachers weren't trained, don't get the training now. Maybe they can sometimes, follow an extra class or something. And we were lucky enough that in the States, there was this whole support program at the school. Mm-hmm. So that made all the difference. While when we were back in the Netherlands, it was one teacher, over 30 kids. And you start the day at 8:30 behind your desk. And you leave at like 3:00. And
you've been behind your desk most of the day.
Yes.
Yes.
So, and where in the States, you at least, if you had 2 special classes a day. So for art, you would go out and you move your body. Mm-hmm. For gym or whatever, for a music class, you would leave your class and move your body. And I remember my daughter had one teacher, and sometimes she said, "Okay, I can see that you need just to run around the tree at the playground because you need to let your energy flow and go." And it really helps that, if you have some time and some room and education to help kids. Because if you have over 30 kids in your class, but no support, it's almost impossible.
It's very difficult. And I think I tell parents quite often, Parenting, in my opinion, is not the hardest job in the world. Teaching is. To deal with 30 personalities times 2, which is the parent.
Yes.
To deal with your higher ups, deliver lesson plans. It is extremely stressful. Yeah. The more we can go as parents and go in and say, I want to partner with you. What would you like for me to do to support you as you teach my child? That should be question number 1 that we start with. I don't care how you think your child is being treated or whatever. Really, you need to go into school and say, I want to partner with you.
Yeah.
That lets the guard down of the teacher. And because it's not about our egos, it's about the child.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, what's the best way I can get my child, this teacher, to enjoy my child, to focus, and that's to create a healthy relationship with them.
Yeah.
And so I try to encourage all parents, let's take a moment, no matter what we think is going wrong. Our goal is to partner with the teacher.
Yeah.
So go in with a humble spirit and then work out the details, because they can be worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. Pepin's last teacher in primary school, was 6th grade. At a certain moment, we told that teacher, for us, it's not about getting straight A's, because in certain fields, he won't. No matter how much he will try. For us, that's okay. Our biggest concern is we want him to be happy. And that's challenging enough. So, and you could almost see her falling off her chair saying, what? Wait, you don't want me to push him. That was also that kind of school. So parents expected from the teachers, my kids needs to go to the highest level of high school there is. Because in the Netherlands, you have different levels of high school. And we were like, he will get where he needs to or wants to. He will have time. He doesn't need to become a little professor. He just needs to be himself.
And I think that's important that we express that. What do we want? What are our expectations? Sometimes the teacher can actually see that the child can go beyond your expectation. But if you can take that conversation a little further and go, where do you see that he's struggling, but you see that he's trying? How can we express to him that it's okay?
Yeah.
So problem solve right there on the spot. Not just talk about what I like for you to do or what our expectations, but ask those secondary questions of how can we come up to an agreement of what this looks like?
I think, that's so important, that together with the teacher, you can find what works for your son.
Yeah. And I always recommend, if possible, bringing the kid into the conference, because my kids, I look right there and I say, okay, what do you think about that? Do you have another suggestion? How would you like for that to work? And then we decide who is responsible for what and when we're checking in with each other.
But now we're in this really weird situation that's called worldwide pandemic. Mm-hmm. So we might have a little bit less to do with teachers in school because we have to homeschool. Mm-hmm. Do you see for your line of work that the demand or the questions you get from parents or the help they need, did that change because of, the pandemic that's going on at the moment and being more at home and maybe have to mandatory homeschool their kids themselves? Do you get different, questions or different?
I really feel like this is a special moment in time where we can examine the value we place on traditional education. I want parents to start looking at the value of life education, the life skills that we teach in our home. I want parents at this point in time to dare to be courageous. If they see their kid is struggling to get up every morning, to sit in front of a computer all day, every day, to simply ask, how can we make this a little bit better for you? Listen to your child. If they just say, I just don't want to do school in the afternoon, I can handle it in the morning. Dare to be courageous, because what you're doing is actually teaching your child, when life is not working for you, examine what's not working and make a change. Our mental health is more important than a grade.
Yes.
And so you don't just leave it there. You're going to ask your kid, how do we then make this work up? What do you suppose? Then you tell to your kid, if they're able, develop an email, send it to your teacher. Tell them this is your struggle. Is there any way that there can be a change? Together with the teacher. Talk it over. Come to some kind of agreement. And if you have to make that call where you have to say, I know the teacher wants this, we couldn't agree on that, but from my point of view, my child needs this, then dare to be courageous and not do what your next door neighbor is doing.
No. And I think also a lot of, people think they have to, it are extraordinary times, and you can't expect to get all the same results, your kids being in school or you, working from home and on the side teaching your kid as well. And it's all, getting the same great results. And it doesn't have to be. A lot of people are now afraid. I don't know how that is in the States, but in the Netherlands, that, kids will fall behind and they're going to miss so much and they're going to miss a whole year. And I'm like, no, this is such a weird time. They're actually learning from this. And I remember, the Second World War for my grandparents. They didn't go to school. There was a war going on. And they were fine.
And I think that's what, the point I really want to stress to parents is the value of problem solving, the value of self-assessment, reflection. That's what we're teaching our kids. What's not working for you? And if we model it, if we're walking around frazzled and then one day we just sit down and go, I'm taking this off my plate. I'll do this at a certain time. This much I'm going to do. They begin to see how you changed. You fix your own challenges. Then when they go to school and they're having struggles, they understand problem-solving skills. So I think this is an opportunity of a lifetime. I know I don't take away the fact that it's difficult. It is very difficult, and especially for expat parents where you don't have that support to go and get a break, have family come in and support you a little bit more, or even single parents. It's extremely difficult. And those are the ones I want to say to you most. I want to give you permission to make some changes that work for you and your kids.
Yes. And I just want to ask you, so do you have an advice? But this is great advice. Almost give yourself some slack. And that's something I read on your website as well. And what I really loved and I really think is so important. You see a lot of special needs parents struggling with taking time for themselves and giving themselves some slack. And in your coaching, you also focus, I read, on self-rewarding. Mm-hmm. And why is that so important?
It's because the science of behavior requires it. In order for us to sustain a behavior, it must be rewarding. And if it's a challenging behavior change, meaning it's not easy for you to do. The reward must be even higher. So for instance, now I set a goal for myself, and I set very low goals. And if I want to increase them, I can. But to check my calendar in the morning and to check it in the evening. And I have a little tracker on my computer. When I do it, I just go ding. And I set the goal for 3 days, 3 consecutive days. This is what I want to do. I'm like, okay, I know this makes my day go better. So I set it up for that way. I track it. I also write down, when I do this, this is what I'm going to do. Now, this is not so difficult for me. So I just give myself a little reward, like watching 3 episodes of this show I like.
Yeah.
That's my little reward. So then I have another one where 15 minutes of reading a book at night, 3 consecutive nights. Ding. When I hit that goal, I turn on music and just dance like crazy. I don't even know how to dance, but that is just, it fills me up. It gives me joy. It makes me ready to continue. Now, if I have something that is more difficult, say that I have a project for work that I don't want to do, then I set it on the calendar, stop thinking about it, put on the calendar when I'm going to sit down and actually spend 3 hours on it. I don't allow myself to think about it or try to put it out of my head, because I've already made a promise to myself on this day, this time, that's when I'm going to work on it. If I do that, I like to go thrift store shopping.
Yeah.
So that is a bigger reward. If I just had to dance for that one, that reward would not sustain me sitting down for 3 hours. So it is important that if it requires a lot of effort for us to change our behavior, the reward has to be bigger. But what do? I've had parents who actually meet the targets. We sit down and we say what the reward is going to be, and they don't follow through with the reward. Guess what? It's least likely that behavior is going to be sustained. We do things when we get a good outcome.
Oh, yes. Oh, you caught me. It's yeah. I just did a 30-day thing, and I said, halfway you had to give yourself a reward, and at the end you had to give yourself a reward. And my halfway reward was taking a bath during daytime, and I still have to for 2 months down the line.
Okay, so if I'm coaching you, I would say, Nadine, get your calendar out. You put it in your calendar, and not even on your calendar, I'm going to say to you, set an alarm.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I have to say,
important.
The sport coach in the group said, okay, you have a new goal. You don't need to exercise every day. You need to relax. That's because you're so busy doing blah, 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 blah. And the first thing you give up, and I think a lot of moms do, the first thing you give up is your me time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also, you want to, what we said in the beginning, you want to show your kids see what they want to see you happy and not overworked and overwhelmed and extremely tired. So that me time.
It's a cycle, because what you're saying is, I missed out on the reward. So I really don't have a reminder when I get busy again to stop.
Yeah.
It's when you experience that reward and it's so enjoyable, you're like, woo, can't wait till next time. So I'm going to try this again. I'm going to set this goal again.
Yes. Oh, if only the stores and the spas open again in this country. Because I have to say that always helps me a lot if I actually leave the house, go somewhere. So not within shouting distance.
For sure.
That's, but we will get there. We will get there. the lockdown will stop at a certain moment because we're like in lockdown number 3 or 4 at the moment. If moms should remember one thing, if there's only one advice you could give supermoms, what would that be?
Parenting is a gift, not a to-do list. Moms, dads, hear me out. Parenting is a gift, not a to-do list. When we get so caught up in doing for our kids that we no longer give them ourselves, we've missed the mark.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to say to the listeners?
I want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. And you super moms, I just want you to understand you are super without proving yourself. You don't have to prove yourself and do all of these things to declare that title. I declare that you are super just because you are a mom.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Sharoya. I will, for everybody curious and wanting to work with her, I will put her details in the show notes. So you can find her website and her Facebook. So you can find her and see how she's doing and how she can help you. I wish you all the best for your new adventure in Africa.
Nadine, if I just may interject, I want parents to understand right now, I feel like the biggest need for those parents who are social and just need time is to a support group. And so I invite parents to join me on Embrace Behavior Change Facebook page, where you can learn more. This year, I'm focusing on support groups. I want to talk to parents. I want to give them a space where they can talk and they can share ideas and tips, strategies with other parents. So I want to say that to parents. This year, even though I will coach parents, I really want to encourage, first step, join the Embrace Behavior Change Parent Support Group. And then we can figure out, do you actually need coaching or do you need community?
That's a lovely tip. And I will include your Facebook group in the show notes as well, so they can find
Perfect.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And like I said, I hope you have a great new adventure in Africa. Where are you going this time?
Going to South Africa.
Oh, great.
So.
That will be an awesome adventure. I hope you can travel soon.
Thank you so much. And thanks again for this honor.
This was today's episode of the Special Needs Supermom podcast. Enjoyed your mental glass of wine? If so, please subscribe, rate and review the show and recommend the podcast to other special needs supermoms you know could use that mental glass of wine as well. Until next time, fellow supermoms, cheers, Nadine.